Hey, welcome to another video. So today we're going to be going into everything there is to know about the city of Atlantis from Stargate, but before we begin, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, join the Sith Citadel Discord, links in the description, and consider becoming a join member or sending a super thanks if you wish to further support the channel. Otherwise, let's jump straight into it. Atlantis, often referred to as the Lost City of the Ancients or the City of the Ancestors, was a massive city ship constructed by the Ancients, also known as the Lanteans in later history, over 30 million years ago. Known as Atlantis in their language, the city ship's internal space was comparable to Manhattan, making it a marvel of ancient engineering. Initially built on Earth, Atlantis served as a testament to their technological and cultural achievements before the ancients departed the Milky Way galaxy for the Pegasus galaxy. Atlantis was originally constructed on the island that would later become known as Santorini. Later it was relocated to Antarctica, which was situated near the equator at the time. The relocation was strategic, potentially aligning with their plans to launch the city ship into space. When a devastating plague, resembling one created by the Ori, began spreading through the Milky Way galaxy, the ancients chose to flee. Atlantis, their crowning achievement, was launched from Earth and transported to the Pegasus galaxy, where they settled on a planet they named Lantia. Upon their arrival in the Pegasus galaxy, the ancients established Atlantis as their new capital and created a Stargate network to connect the galaxy. They seeded planets with life, mirroring their earlier efforts in the Milky Way, and soon the Pegasus galaxy flourished with diverse civilizations. However, their peace was shattered by the rise of the Wraith, a formidable enemy that launched an extensive war against the ancients. The Wraith systematically destroyed ancient colonies until Atlantis was the last stronghold. Despite successfully repelling numerous attacks during the first siege of Atlantis, the ancients faced insurmountable odds. To protect their city from annihilation, they submerged Atlantis beneath Lantia's ocean. The city's advanced shield system maintained its structural integrity and atmosphere, while oceanic clamps anchored it to the seabed. As the war drew to a close, the Ancient Council made a difficult decision to abandon Atlantis and return to Earth via the Stargate. Unknown to most, Dr. Weir, who was transported back in time through a malfunctioning ancient time travel device, stayed behind in stasis. Working with the ancient scientist Janus, she ensured the city's survival for a millennia. Janus programmed failsafe systems into Atlantis, including mechanisms to rotate its zero-point modules every 3,300 years to maintain power levels. He also added a system to release the city from the ocean floor clamps if power reached critical levels, allowing it to rise to the surface automatically. To ensure its protection, the Stargate was configured to accept wormholes only from Earth. These measures preserved Atlantis until it was rediscovered by the Atlantis expedition 10,000 years later. The ancients' departure from the Milky Way inspired the myth of Atlantis among Earth's civilizations, passed down through generations as a tale of legendary city lost beneath the waves. When rediscovered by the Atlantis expedition, the city ship became a base for scientific exploration and a critical site for understanding ancient technology and history. Atlantis, both as a technological marvel and as a symbol of resilience, remains one of the most iconic legacies of the ancients, embodying their ingenuity and their enduring connection to both the Milky Way and Pegasus galaxies. In July 2004, the Atlantis expedition reached the lost city of Atlantis, submerged in the Pegasus galaxy. They began their exploration, only to discover that the city's zero-point modules were nearly depleted. Dr. Rodney McKay realized the shields protecting Atlantis from the surrounding ocean would fail, leading to catastrophic flooding. Faced with this impending disaster, the expedition sought refuge on the planet Athos. However, after a wraith culling forced the Athosians to flee, the expedition returned to Atlantis with the refugees. At that critical moment, the city's fail-safe mechanism, designed by the ancient Lantean scientist Janus, activated. Atlantis rose from the ocean to the surface just as the shields collapsed, sparing the city from destruction. With the ZPMs exhausted, the expedition relied on naquadah generators to power essential systems, including the Stargate. While sufficient for basic needs, the generators lacked the capacity to power the city's defenses. This vulnerability became evident when a massive storm threatened to destroy Atlantis. Dr. McKay devised a plan to channel lightning strikes from the storm into the city's power grid by disabling the ground stations, electrifying the corridors in the process. During the evacuation to another planet, a Janai force led by Acastus Colia attempted to seize the city. However, Lieutenant Colonel John Shepard successfully thwarted their efforts, killing over 50 reinforcements by reactivating the Stargate shield. McKay's plan succeeded, saving the city. Soon after, the Wraith discovered Earth's existence and sent 3 hive ships to attack Atlantis. Reinforcements from Earth, including the Daedalus and the newly discovered ZPM, allowed the expedition to destroy the ships. When the Wraith sent 12 more, the team devised a ruse. They cloaked Atlantis and detonated a nuclear warhead to simulate its destruction. This deception sparked a Wraith civil war over dwindling resources, temporarily diverting their attention. In 2006, the SG-1 team visited Atlantis aboard the Odyssey to aid in the fight against the Ori. Lieutenant Colonels Samantha Carter and Cameron Mitchell collaborated with McKay to Stargate in the Supergate in the Milky Way, neutralizing the Ori's advantage. Meanwhile, Dr. Daniel Jackson and Vala Maldoran assessed the Atlantis database in search of the Sangral, a weapon against the Ori. They encountered Morgan Le Fay, an ascended Lantian posing as a holographic interface. Although she provided key information, the others intervened before she could reveal the Sangral's location. Later that year, an experiment depleted Atlantis' last remaining ZPM. The team discovered living Lantians in the void between galaxies, who reclaimed the city and expelled the expedition. However, the Assurans attacked shortly afterwards, killing the Lantians and capturing Major General Jack O'Neill and Richard Woolsey. The Atlantis team mounted a daring rescue, using the city's shield generators to emit an anti-replicator wave. Defeating the Assurans and reclaiming Atlantis, they retained one of the Assuran ZPMs, sending the other two back to Earth for the Ori conflict. In 2007, the Assurans retaliated by sending a Stargate-equipped satellite to target Atlantis. Unable to dissipate the energy beam, the expedition used the star drive to lift the city off Lantia. With power from a mobile drilling platform, Atlantis escaped but suffered damage that caused it to drop out of hyperspace prematurely. A stolen ZPM allowed the city to relocate to M35117, where it remained hidden. In 2008, Michael Kenmore, a Wraith humanoid hybrid, infiltrated Atlantis with stolen technology, attempting to capture Taylor Moggan's son. He activated the city's self-destruct, but the team thwarted his plan, ultimately killing him in a climactic battle. Throughout his trials, Atlantis endured, becoming a symbol of resilience and a beacon of hope in the Pegasus galaxy. In early 2009, the Wraith leader Todd contacted the Atlantis expedition with alarming news. One of his subordinates had rebelled and used several zero-point modules salvaged during the destruction of Westeros to construct a formidable superhive ship. Todd warned that this vessel posed an imminent threat and urged the expedition to destroy it. In response, the Earthlings deployed the Daedalus to intercept the hive ship. However, the ZPM-enhanced vessel overwhelmed the Daedalus and disappeared into hyperspace. Its destination unknown, the expedition soon discovered the superhive was headed directly for Earth. Attempts to stop the hive by the Apollo and the newly commissioned Soundwve failed, leaving Earth vulnerable. Desperate for a solution, John Shepard interrogated Todd about the whereabouts of additional ZPMs. Even Major Lauren's team managed to secure 3 ZPMs, enabling Atlantis to achieve its full power potential. The city ship, armed with 3 fully operational ZPMs, was sent back to Earth in a last-ditch effort to intercept the threat. Dr. Carson Beckett piloted Atlantis, but its hyperdrive failed just as it approached the edge of the Milky Way. Dr. Radek Zelenka proposed a daring alternative, activating an experimental drive based on Stargate wormhole technology. Though risky, this technology allowed Atlantis to reach Earth in seconds. As Atlantis arrived, it placed itself between the superhive and Earth, enduring a relentless barrage of weapons fire. The city's drones retaliated, but the hive ship's assault forced Atlantis into Earth's atmosphere, straining its shields to the brink of collapse. Facing critical power loss, Richard Woolsey made the difficult decision to continue firing instead of adjusting the city's descent. Stargate Command ultimately succeeded in destroying the hive ship, but Atlantis was left with no choice but to attempt a dangerous re-entry and landing. Cheers erupted at Stargate Command when Atlantis successfully landed in Earth's waters near San Francisco Bay. The city cloaked itself upon approach, and the landing zone was placed under naval quarantine to ensure secrecy. Following its arrival on Earth, repairs began on Atlantis. While the experimental wormhole drive was beyond repair, the hyperdrive was deemed salvageable. Meanwhile, political tensions arose as the IOA, or the International Oversight Advisory, sought full control of Atlantis, recognizing its potential as a powerful tool for global dominance. The IOA's ambitions risked transforming it into a de facto world government, as any nation in possession of Atlantis' technology and drone weaponry could command global compliance. Economic constraints prevented the president from aligning a full military contingent to Atlantis for its return to the Pegasus galaxy. Instead, a compromise was struck. If Woolsey could persuade the IOA to relinquish control, the president would approve of a small team of military advisors to protect Atlantis and its mission in Pegasus. When the IOA moved to shut down the Atlantis expedition entirely, Woolsey, General Jack O'Neill, and Colonel Samantha Carter devised a plan to circumvent their efforts. O'Neill, as the head of Homeworld Security, temporarily took command of Atlantis, which was legally in American territorial waters. He secretly utilized Air Force resources and personnel to repair and resupply the city. With the assistance of Dr. Bill Lee and the SGC maintenance team, O'Neill ensured Atlantis was fully operational and staffed with around 400 personnel, including a significant number of military replacements. Faced with the prospect of U.S. military dominance over Atlantis, the IOA eventually allowed the city ship to return to Pegasus. Woolsey resumed command, and personal transfers were permitted for those who wished to rejoin the expedition. With Shepard and Beckett alternating as pilots, Atlantis embarked on a 9-day journey to Lantia, accompanied by the Daedalus and George Hammond, which saw the city off from Earth's orbit. Unbeknownst to the inhabitants, a flock of pigeons had nested in Atlantis while it was on Earth. Trapped when the shield was raised before departure, the birds inadvertently became passengers journeying with Atlantis to the Pegasus Galaxy. After 5 days into its journey back to the Pegasus Galaxy, Dr. Carson Beckett, piloting Atlantis, noticing a distinct wobble in the city's flight. Colonel John Shepard traced the issue to the No. 4 hyperdrive induction array, a system already damaged during the battle with the Superhive and proving difficult to repair. While Drs. Rodney McKay and Radek Zelenka identified a minor power variance, they initially chose to monitor the situation rather than to intervene. However, on the 7th day, the damaged induction array malfunctioned catastrophically, siphoning power from all systems to expand the hyperspace envelope. Dr. Miku Kuzaji acted quickly to prioritize power to the shields, preventing their failure. But Zelenka ordered Beckett to drop Atlantis out of hyperspace, as the system's power variance grew uncontrollable. Though the crew managed to stabilize the city and pinpoint the source of the issue, the malfunction drained the ZPMs to just 20% capacity and fried the induction array's command crystal, which could not be replaced. Stranded at the edge of the Pegasus Galaxy with the Daedalus over 13 days away and no nearby habitable planet in sight, the expedition faced a dire situation. Eventually, Zelenka identified a marginally habitable planet within 5 days at sublight speed. Atlantis made its way there, and Shepard landed the city on the planet, at a precarious angle in a location barely suitable for life. The chosen site, 18 degrees north of the equator, had an average temperature of -8 degrees Celsius. Lacking a Stargate on the planet, the team began constructing one while the city began adapting its systems and structure to the extreme cold. However, the landing and hyperspace incident had drained the ZPMs further to just 9% power. Once settled, the team faced additional challenges. Short-range sensors began malfunctioning due to ice buildup, which maintenance teams resolved after identifying the cause. Ice chunks periodically struck the city, prompting Zelenka to investigate the ancient ice defense systems. However, these systems failed to deploy as the underwater sensors detecting the ice were damaged. Major Evan Lorne's team repaired the sensors, allowing the defenses to function. Meanwhile, a surprising discovery was made in one of the towers: a flock of pigeons. These birds had stowed away when Atlantis was on Earth and inadvertently made the journey to Pegasus. Despite concerns from biologists about potential ecological impacts, the expedition chose to let the pigeons remain, believing that removing them might cause more harm than good. Thus, Atlantis gained an unusual new population. The challenges escalated further when Dr. Rodney McKay was captured and turned into a wraith. Using McKay's intimate knowledge of Atlantis, the wraith infiltrated the city and stole the ZPM. They also launched incursions via the Stargate, bypassing its shield with a metal iris, similar to the one on Earth at Stargate Command, was installed. Over time, the expedition recovered a partially charged ZPM from Satida and another from a wraith safe haven. These efforts restored Atlantis to full power. Additionally, Zelenka and Dr. William Lynn discovered a replacement hyperdrive induction array crystal in a Satidan military museum, enabling repairs to the hyperdrive. As tensions with the Wraith escalated, one of the queens launched a full-scale assault on Atlantis. Warned by the Janai, the expedition prepared to defend the city rather than abandon it. During the ensuing battle, Atlantis was launched into orbit as both weapons platform and the command center. Piloted by Shepard and commanded by Jack O'Neill, Atlantis joined forces with the George Hammond, the pride of the Janai, and a small Wraith fleet led by one of their guides. Precision strikes from Atlantis' drones inflicted severe damage on 2 Hive ships and destroyed a third. Despite sustaining damage to the East Pier and maneuvering engine, Shepard managed to maintain control of the city. Following one of the Queen's demise and the surrender of the remaining Wraith forces, Shepard successfully landed Atlantis near the equator. The landing was smoother and more precise than the previous one, marking a new chapter for the expedition. So throughout the Stargate universe, Atlantis exists not only as a bastion of ancient technology, but also as a point of divergence in numerous alternate realities and timelines. In one alternate reality explored by SG-1, using an invention created by the ancient scientist Janus, the Atlantis expedition was forced to evacuate shortly after arrival. Faced with rapidly dwindling power reserves and no viable solution, they retreated to the planet Athos. However, their sanctuary fractured when several members of the expedition became addicted to the powerful Wraith enzyme. SG-1, upon discovering this reality, followed the expedition and negotiated a temporary truce with the Wraith. Returning to the sunken city, they successfully raised Atlantis to the surface immediately, leveraging Janus's ancient technology as a new power source. This triumphant return allowed the stranded team to reclaim the city and seek a way back to their own timeline. In another alternate dimension, Lieutenant Colonel Samantha Carter was transported to a reality where Atlantis was never found by the Earthlings. Without the discovery of the lost city, the Wraith remained in hibernation, unawakened since their last conflict with the Ancients. The absence of Earth's interference in the Pegasus galaxy altered the balance of power significantly. This is in Stargate SG-1, The Road Not Taken. In another alternate timeline presented a darker future, where Atlantis rose to the surface as its power reserves dwindled. Seizing this opportunity, the Wraith captured the city and used a worshipper with the ancient gene to pilot it. By infusing Atlantis with genetic material from a hive ship, they increased their control over its systems. The city was ultimately abandoned on Earth as the Wraith turned their focus to battle with the Goa'uld. In a twist of fate, SG-1, led by Colonel Jack O'Neill and allied with a Wraith Queen named Earthborn, reactivated Atlantis to destroy the Goa'uld Hekatu's forces. Following the victory, O'Neill agreed to a truce, using Atlantis to return the surviving Wraith to Pegasus. Before departing, he broadcast a message declaring Earth's return to intergalactic diplomacy, emphasizing friendship and unity over isolationism. In another timeline, Atlantis lacked a failsafe mechanism to regulate its zero-point modules, leading to all three to deplete simultaneously. The city sank beneath the ocean as a result, and most of the expedition perished shortly after their arrival in Pegasus. Dr. Weir, John Shepard, and Radek Zelenka survived long enough to escape in a time-traveling puddle jumper. Stranded 10,000 years in the past, they faced a desperate battle against Wraith darts. Weir, the sole survivor, convinced Janus to design a power-saving failsafe to present Atlantis to future expeditions. Her actions safeguarded the city and ensured the survival of a different timeline. 48,000 years into the future, the planet M35117 had become a barren desert under the dying sun. Atlantis lay abandoned, and humanity had long since moved on. John Shepard, stranded in the distant future, sought a way back to his own time. Guided by a holographic Dr. Rodney McKay, Shepard discovered that waiting for a solar flare to create a temporal window would take centuries. With the planet becoming uninhabitable within 500 years, he harnessed solar energy to power the city's shields and preserve the atmosphere for as long as possible. In yet another alternate reality, there's even more tapestries of possibilities, some tragic, others triumphant, all revolving around the city's immense potential and peril.
Atlantis is home to a wide array of advanced technologies, many of which were designed by the Ancients, the city's original creators. These innovations included the Stargate, puddle jumpers, drone weapons, the Star Drive, and the protective shield that envelops the city. Together, these technologies enable Atlantis to function as a mobile and self-sustaining entity capable of defending itself from various threats and traveling vast distances across the universe. Atlantis' primary energy source comes from the zero-point modules, the ZPMs, which are stored in a specifically designated room within the city. To access the full range of the city's technology, 3 ZPMs are required, though the city can still perform essential tasks with just 1 in emergencies. In addition to ZPMs, Atlantis utilizes solar-powered generators, but these are insufficient to meet the city's enormous energy demands. In one critical scenario, a massive storm provided the necessary lightning strikes to briefly power the city and protect it from a tsunami. A more reliable alternative energy source is a geological drilling station located on the ocean floor of Lantia, originally built by the Ancients and later used by the Atlantis expedition. The city is surrounded by a colossal protective shield that can be activated to create a dome encompassing Atlantis. This shield is designed to protect the city from a variety of threats, such as orbital bombardment, the pressure of the ocean depths, tsunamis, and even coronal mass ejections from the sun. It's powerful enough to protect Atlantis when it's submerged underwater or traveling through space. and it can also expand to safeguard nearly an entire planet when needed. The shield can be contracted to save power, and after modifications made by Dr. Rodney McKay, it can even cloak the city. During the Second Battle of Atlantis, the shield held strong against Wraith attacks in the vacuum of space, only dropping to around 60% of its capacity after a heavy blow. Despite taking considerable damage, the city recovered quickly, proving its durability. The star drive aboard Atlantis allows the city to travel vast distances, including to distant planets or even other galaxies, in a matter of days. It requires 3 ZPMs to function at full capacity, but it can operate on a single ZPM in conjunction with other power sources, such as the mobile drilling platform. The greatest amount of energy is needed to lift the city off a planetary surface, after which the star drive can maintain hyperspace travel with minimal power. However, the hyperdrive was damaged permanently during a return to the Pegasus galaxy, when an overload destroyed one of its control crystals. A replacement crystal was eventually found, restoring the star drive's function. The Atlantis Stargate serves as a primary means of transportation, allowing the movement of people and objects to distant worlds. It's equipped with a force field that prevents unauthorized matter from rematerializing, similar to Earth's Stargate Iris, but far more sophisticated and difficult to breach. Ultimately, Atlantis' Stargate can dial addresses in other galaxies thanks to a specialized crystal in its dial home device, or DHD. After the original Stargate was destroyed by the Atera device, which targeted and destroyed active Stargates, it was replaced with a gate from the former intergalactic gate bridge network, retaining the ability to dial across galaxies. Later, a metal iris was added to further provide protection from intrusions. The wormhole drive is an experimental technology designed by the ancients to enable instantaneous travel across vast distances. Although the drive was abandoned due to its extreme power demands and inherent instability, the Atlantis expedition used it for a brief trip to Earth after the star drive malfunctioned. The drive worked by creating a wormhole, allowing Atlantis to reach Earth within seconds. However, this one-time use burned out the drive, and the technology was beyond the capabilities of the Tari to repair due to its complex and unknown components. When Atlantis is required to land on a planet which is much colder than Lantia, the city is equipped with protection systems designed to ensure the safety and comfort of its inhabitants. Upon detecting freezing temperatures, Atlantis adapts by reshaping parts of its structure to better insulate against the cold. It can also deploy underwater spikes and cables to protect vulnerable components from large chunks of ice, especially when the city is submerged in an icy environment. However, if the city's underwater sensors are damaged, these defenses will not deploy. In one case, after Atlantis landed on a frozen planet, the cold protection systems failed to activate due to damaged sensors until repairs were made by Dr. Radek Zelenka and Major Evan Lorne. Once fixed, the city's ice defenses engaged, shielding it from harsh conditions. These technological marvels, combined with the ingenuity and adaptability of its inhabitants, make Atlantis an unparalleled force in the Pegasus galaxy, capable of surviving and thriving in a variety of challenging environments.
But what did you guys think of the city of Atlantis? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't already, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, join the Sith Citadel Discord, links in the description, and consider becoming a join member or sending a super thanks if you wish to further support the channel. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.